we will be talking about the Data.com APIs in action. So just want to gauge the audience here. If you can show your hands, how many of you are Data.com customers? Okay. And how many of you would consider yourselves programmers, like you're familiar with basics of REST and SQL, et cetera? Great. So I think you're in the right room right now. Okay. So as any product manager of a publicly traded company would say, that whenever I talk about any release, future releases, there's no commitment on the time, there's no commitment on the content. So you must make your purchasing, your buying decisions based on what you see in our GA products today, and that's awesome. So anything that I talk about which is future is no guarantee in terms of timing and content. With that said, we have a really exciting agenda. We'll quickly do an overview for people who are not familiar with Data.com. We'll get a familiarity with the basics of what features are there, what products are there. But really the core is going to be about APIs. And we'll talk about some slideware on APIs, but very quickly then jump into the demo that Sid has prepared. So there's a live demo. Majority of the time of the presentation is going to be that demo, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. Okay. I'm Zaid Mahmood. I'm the Director of Product Management at Data.com. I have been with Salesforce for about a little over a year now. My primary responsibilities are building the API platform and enhancing it for Data.com. So that's what I've spent majority of my time since I've been at Salesforce. At Salesforce, we believe that we're not just providing you data, we are providing you insight with your customers, understanding what the customers are about, understanding the contact details, understanding the accounts, the company details. For accounts companies, we have our own Data.com curated data, as well as we partner with Dun & Bradstreet. And if you're not familiar with that, this is really the gold standard for a company account information. So you will have a lot more companies than what we have in Data.com. There are close to 200 million companies available, international, global, and more than 80 attributes on each account available within Data.com. For contacts, we have our own crowdsourced data, which we have been accumulating over the past few years. If you're familiar with Jigsaw.com, Jigsaw.com is now called Data.com Connect. And beyond just getting that crowdsourced data, there's sophisticated platform technology which does the deduping, removing the fraudulent entries, and really enriching the data. So it goes beyond just what we access from crowdsourcing. And then this Data.com platform is purpose-built for the Sales Cloud. It's purpose-built to be in your CRM system, which is not just a basic integration tool which is bringing in a CSV or Excel file and throwing it at you. Rather, it really works well with your platform, which is your Sales Cloud, with your Force.com API platform. And more than real-time data, I would say it's on-time data. It's on-demand data when you want it. It's based on your triggers, events that happen, on-demand, nightly, scheduled jobs, whatever your frequency is, whatever works for your business logic. That's when you enrich the data. That's when you cleanse the data. So there are business drivers for getting Data.com. They should be recognized in your organization. Otherwise, it gets pretty difficult to get a buy-in from the bigger organization. Basic use case is prospecting, where you say, okay, I want to have leads with a certain criteria. The criteria could be that I want leads for all the public companies which are $1 billion plus revenue, have more than 10,000 employees, and have director level titles. So that's very basic use case. The second one could be that you have an account, but within that account you are looking for opportunities to grow. So for example, if Salesforce was your account and you have already sold your software to Salesforce or your product to Salesforce and also to ExactTarget and also to Data.com, and then you heard that Salesforce acquired a company called RelateIQ, which it actually has, then you can see, is it relevant to go and try and sell into that organization as well? So you can do white space analysis. With D&B data, you have a lot of information on the accounts, on the companies. So you can try and understand the sweet spot for your products. An example would be that you have been selling, your sales organization has been selling based on the strategy that you have, but then you analyze, you do market research and see, is there a sweet spot that you have not identified? For example, it could be that, yeah, you see that you get a lot of revenue from Europe, but within Europe, it's really Germany and France which is bringing most of the revenue. And maybe it's the companies which have more than 1,000 employees, but less than 10,000 employees. And maybe it's the companies who are investing heavily in SaaS. So there's a lot of attributes in there that can feed up to your analytics and give you that market research information. There are a bunch of other use cases that I won't walk through right now, but territory analysis is another good one, and scoring and rerouting the leads. Also, the last one is an interesting one, which is a revenue roll-up. So a lot of mergers and acquisitions happen, and you may have accounts which are assigned to different sales territories, and then you realize that we are mergers and acquisitions. Now all of them, or a lot of them, are actually subsidiaries of this one entity. And when you do the roll-up, you realize that although by themselves these accounts were pretty small, when you look at the bigger picture, they are bringing you a lot of revenue. But that's still like 50% of the revenue, or 50% of the companies that they have. So what about the other 50% that you can go after? Products that we have from Data.com, one is called Prospector, the other one is called Clean. This is a session for APIs, so let's talk about APIs. We have primarily 3 sets of APIs: search APIs, purchase APIs, and match APIs. If you're talking about Prospector, you already have a license for search API and purchase API. If you have Clean, then you have license for the match API. And we will go into the details of usage of these APIs as well. The flexibility of the usage of data platform comes from going beyond the UI. The UI, we can only think so much. We can only address so many use cases and so many customers. So the UI tends to be the common denominator, of course, while the APIs are much more granular. So by using the APIs from the same platform that we use to build the UI, you can go ahead and address that last mile, that nuance in your use case which is there that we have not addressed out of the box that you can go ahead and address. So for example, you can build Salesforce UIs, you can customize those, you can have a separate tab built into the Sales Cloud, you can introduce your own business logic based on certain event, certain trigger, timing. You can go ahead and do that cleansing exercise, that enrichment exercise, and then you can integrate with other Salesforce apps as well. Or maybe on Salesforce One mobile cloud, Salesforce One platform, you can build a mobile app. So going out of the box, other ideas to get some ideas rolling in your head is that you can do Data.com Clean within your Sales Console, which means that as marketing brings in leads, typically these inside guys, before picking up the phone, what do? They go on LinkedIn, they go on Twitter, they try and find the social handles, the interests of this person that they're going to be talking to. Why have them click through and spend that time? That's valuable time. So we can provide you those social handles. We can provide you those insights. We can provide you the richer information on the contacts that they'll be calling. And this is also a demo item, the searching of Data.com before you create. So you can avoid creating accounts and contacts which already exist in Data.com and get the most up-to-date information from Data.com. Let's say you're introducing a new account. It's a virgin account. You've never gone after that account. But now for the sales guy, the account executive, to go after that, he needs some contact information. How about you just do the search and already get some names of directors and VPs from the IT department, from the CIO's department, and say, hey, maybe these are the people to go after, rather than just saying, hey, now you have been assigned to Salesforce, go figure out. There are 13,000 employees. So there are a bunch of other use cases that you can look into. You can do a lot of on-demand trigger-based, naturally it's API. You can do marketing automation. And mobile apps is always a great use case. We're supporting mobile through Salesforce One. You can have your own mobile apps built as well. A few basic concepts, just logical architecture before we go into the APIs, is that if you have Sales Cloud, then you have an org. Within your org, you have concepts of accounts. You have leads. You have contacts. Data.com is a separate cloud, but it feeds into your Salesforce Cloud. So you have concept of Data Cloud Company, Data Cloud Contact, and Data Cloud DNB Company. These are external objects, or also called as S objects, which you can access through your Force.com API. You can access through Apex. So these objects are available directly within your org. You don't have to do anything special about that there. Looking into the search API first, before we go into the purchase and the match API, very basic, very similar to SQL syntax. That's why I was asking the question if you're familiar with SQL. So standard database SQL query, slightly modified, we call it SOQL. That's Salesforce Object Query Language. You do a select on the fields from one of the Data Cloud objects that I showed you. You put in your where clause, your filter criteria, and some optional parameters for your order by clause as well. So pretty simple there. I'm sure you cannot read this, but the idea here was that whenever you're referring to one of the Data Cloud objects, each one of them is going to have different filter fields. Each one of them is going to have different logical operators that they support. So please take a look at data.com/API, the online documentation. That's your current source, most updated source for supported operators. Search API, if you used our search mechanism through the UI, you search, you get a list, and you can choose which ones to add to your account. If you add those, then we quote unquote consider that to be a purchase, and then we adjust your credit balance. When you do it through API, there's no way for us to know that from the results set that we send to you, which ones did you pick. So what we do is that we obfuscate certain fields and give you still enough information that you can make a buying decision. And once you have purchased, then you see the last column on the right, which is false, turns into true, and then you can have access to all the fields. None of them are obfuscated. The fields that you see as gray are only hidden. They're not obfuscated for the purpose of this presentation. Those are the fields for which the data was being shown. I didn't want to show my manager's data here. Moving on to Purchase API, once you've done the search, you're going to purchase. Purchase API has been there. It was a bit more convoluted. We have made it much simpler now. So Purchase API, the user example would be you do a search on contacts or companies, and you get a list of IDs returned. You use that list of IDs then to do a post, and that post request will have those IDs passed. In response, what you get back is a URL. Do a get on that URL, and you have your list. Pretty simple. Moving on to some other related APIs within the Purchase API. You can check the balance on each user. So out of the box, each user gets about 300 records that they can purchase per month. So how many have they used? What is the outstanding balance? You can also check similarly the company's contacts. Have they been purchased already before you go ahead and add them? And you can also check status on a past order. So when was the order executed? How many records did I buy, etc. So these are all related to the Purchase API. Match is different from search. So just to clarify, you would do search, like the example I gave earlier is that you have a criteria, you want to go after a certain size of a company and how many employees, how much revenue, etc. That will give you a list that you can go ahead and purchase. Match is different. Match is saying that you already have that account information, you already have that contact information, and you want to go ahead and make sure that if there are any missing fields, those are filled out, and if there are fields which are inaccurate or they're stale, then they are updated. So that's the difference between search and match. Again, a REST-style API, we have three what we call match engines. The first two examples that you see here for contact and company are using our data.com, data cloud match engine. You can use that. The third example that you see is for the DNB match engine, and I'll talk about that in more detail. And the fourth one that you see is the social handles. So you can get like Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., Facebook profile, also for your contacts. And then you can do a get on these URLs to get details around how many max requests you can get, what is the batch size, etc. Let's go in an example for the match API for Dunn's Right API. Again, this is a DNB, Dun & Bradstreet API. We provide just a proxy service over it, so you will actually call something within Force.com API platform, but we actually go against DNB and fetch that data. Why you would need this is that, like I said, the number of companies that DNB covers is a lot bigger than what we cover in data.com, plus the number of attributes that you get back for each record is much richer. It's like 80 attributes. There are two proprietary attributes which you want to consider, which is confidence code and the max batch size. So confidence code is saying that, hey, what is the confidence level at DNB before you send me a record? Is it 80%? Is it 50%? That's your threshold. And over and above that, you can say, but still, just give me like the top 15 or the top 10 companies. Don't give me everything back. So these are proprietary attributes from DNB, which we expose to you, and you can leverage those. An example of a JSON which is going in a request, you give your match criteria. I've highlighted two fields here, which is the name and the address. Pay a little more attention to that. And you identify the match engine, which is the Dunn's Right match engine in this case. So I go to the next slide, we see the response back. And in the response, what you see is that those two fields which I highlighted are identified as the fields which were different. So in the previous slide, in the request, we said the name is Salesforce. In reality, the name is salesforce.com/inc, And the street address is not just one market, it's one market street, and there's a suite number associated with that as well. So these were different. On top of that, we've also shown the other fields that you had asked for in the same sequence that you had in your request, which means it's easier for you to read those, to parse those as well. So to wrap up, in our Winter 15, which is our current release, I talked about the Duns Right API, that's there. The parent Duns filter, we have added one new API, but in our summer release, we had provided the Duns search and the global Duns search. Together with all of these three, you have enough information to go ahead and build an account hierarchy now. Social profiles, 40 million social handles available today, not just for the contact assets that we have in Datacom, but the ones even for which we don't have contact assets. And then, going back, for the improved contact search, earlier we used to obfuscate even the first and the last name, so you would only see the first letter of the first name and the last letter, and the first letter of the last name, but now you see the names completely, but some of the fields are still obfuscated, like I showed you, but now you have enough information to go ahead and make your purchasing decision. So with that, I will hand the baton over to Sid.
Thanks, Seb. Hi, I'm Sid. I'm a senior engineer on the Datacom team. Today for the demo, we are going to cover 3 use cases. So the first use case being search before create, the second one lead append, and the third one being account hierarchy using parent Duns. So before we get started, I'm going to move over to WorkBench, where we're going to explore a couple of requests and responses. People over here familiar with WorkBench, like they've got an idea what WorkBench is. For those who haven't, WorkBench is a way that you can query Salesforce data via APIs. You could use force.com APIs, you can use bulk APIs, REST APIs. You can also query and update your data through the web interface itself. So initially, I'm going to start looking at these APIs over here. We're going to examine the request and response, and then move on to the demo. So here, what you could do is you can go to queries, SOQL query, and as you know, we have a couple of objects. So here, I'm going to examine Data Cloud Contact. So as soon as you select the object over here, what you see is the list of all the fields that are available with this object. So you can decide to, you can even build a query in the interface itself. Like you can select multiple fields. You can even add filters over here. To explore it further, so I have a sample query over here. So this is the query I have for the structure, or it is similar to what we have for regular SOQL queries. You select a list of fields. You're selecting it from this object called Data Cloud Contact. I'm applying a filter over here. The first filter is company name like Cisco. So this is a wildcard character, like using the like. And then I'm applying the state is equal to California. Finally, I'm ordering by title, and I'm limiting my result set. So if I run this query, this is the result set I get back. You can see a couple of fields are obfuscated for certain records. What this indicates is you haven't yet purchased the record. So if you look at this field called is owned, which is false, and that's where you can see some of these fields are obfuscated. You can see this field over here, and for this record, I'm able to view the email and I'm able to view the title, meaning that I have purchased this record. So another thing I would like to point out over here is another field called ID. I know if you're using the regular Salesforce S objects, you're used to using this ID field, but when you're using Data Cloud objects, please remember these ID fields are dummy. The fields that you should be looking at are contact ID for Data Cloud Contact and company ID for Data Cloud Company. So other than this, what you can do over here is we have another clause that you can add in a query called the offset. So think of offset as a way of paginating queries. So let's say if I did offset 10, this would give me the next 10 results once I run this query. So from here, SOQL is, as you know, you can run SOQL in Apex. We made some improvements to our purchase API starting Winter 15. Earlier, the purchase process was a 2-step process. Like first, you would make an entry in Data Cloud purchase usage, followed by an entry in Data Cloud owned purchase. So we simplified it further. So what you can do is, what we use now is we use the Connect API. Just to avoid any confusion, when I'm referring to Connect API, I'm referring to the Salesforce Connect API and not the Datacom Connect API. So I'm going to explore a simple request over here. So what this request is, I'm using the Connect API for Data Cloud. I'm querying contacts, and the number you can see in the URL, this is nothing but the contact ID for the contact. So once I click on execute, so this is the results that I get back. I'll just open up a raw response, which will make it easier. So this is the response I get back. You can see it's a JSON string. And you can see these fields like, again, street, email, phone number, and title. They are obfuscated, indicating that we have not yet purchased the record. Other fields are like, they are available for you to view, so you can make your purchasing decision looking at those fields if that record is important to you or not. So let's go ahead and try to purchase this record. Again, purchasing is a post request. This is my URL, which I use, again, connect Data Cloud orders. And in my post request, what I specify is, so two things I specify over here. What is my user type? Since people who are familiar with Datacom, you can draw credits from either a monthly user or a list pool user. So we now give you the flexibility to specify what sort of user do you want to draw the credits from. And the records you want to purchase, you can specify them over here. If you want to purchase multiple records, you can specify them separated by a comma. So let's say once I run this query, as you can see, I was able to successfully purchase one record. This is the purchase ID. You do not need to worry about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and look at our account, look at our contact that we had looked a minute before. So as you can see now, all the information is visible. I can see the street address for this contact. I can see the email. I can see the phone number, and I can see the title as well, indicating that this record is now purchased. From here, again, I'm going to move back to the match options that we have. For using the match queries, the URL, what you need to add over here is match. And if you execute, you see over here we have 3 matching engines that are available. The first one being social profile match engine. So what you can do is you can match your social handles. When I say social handles, I mean your Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter handles. Dunn's Right match engine is only supported for Data Cloud Company. And finally, we have the Data Cloud matching, which is supported for both accounts and contacts as well. So we're going to look at one of the examples in Dunn's Right matching. So as you know, as soon as you keep clicking on, you get more and more information. And you can see over here what I see is what are the list of fields that using this API that you can match. I have this list of fields. And what are the ones which you can retrieve after you've matched. You see that the maximum number of records that you can match in one request is 10 for Dunn's Right. So let's try a request over here. Again, requests are post type of requests. I'll go through the URL once more. So what I have in the URL here is, again, I specified my match verb, followed by what is the matching engine that I'm using, that is Dunn's Right, followed by what attribute am I matching, which is Data Cloud Company, and followed by the default rule that we use, that is Dunn's Right match rule. Looking at a request, as you can see, I've specified in my request that the attribute I'm matching is a Data Cloud Company, and followed by all the fields that I've specified for my record. And finally, what are the fields that I'm requesting back in the response? So let's say I try this match. So I got back a response, expanding the response. So as you can see over here, we didn't find any errors. There were no errors while you were matching the record. It gives you what are the differences in data that we got while matching. So for example, over here, we see that the name was different and the phone was different. So let's see in the response, what did we get as the name? So we got back the name as Partner Reinsurance Company of the US. And just to go back and verify what we had sent in our request, it was direct property and casualty insurance carriers. So you can see in the response itself, it's highlighted what are the fields that are different, as well as you get a lot of other information that the API provides itself. So from here, I'm going to move over to the demo we have. That is the search before create. The use case here is a lot of time field reps and people who are entering information, creating accounts, they have incomplete information, or they do not have enough time to enter all the information. So let's say, for example, if you went in Salesforce today and you clicked on the new icon, what you would be presented is, you'd be presented with a layout to enter the information that for the account, such as the account name, the address, etc. So what you could do using Data.com API is, let's say if I click on new, instead of going to the default layout, I'm presented with this UI, which allows me to search for my record before creating it. So let's take an example of me searching for a company called BNSF Logistics. And let's say I'm looking for this company in Texas. So I'm returned a couple of results, as you can see over here. For a lot of results, the information is obfuscated, indicating this record has not been purchased yet. And what you could do is you could just scroll through these results and you could see which is your relevant company that you're adding to, that you're looking to add. In this example, let's say I was looking for this company, this headquarters is what I'm looking for. So with one click of add, my account is created in Salesforce. And as you can see, all the relevant information from Data.com has already been populated in the account itself. So when I say all the relevant information, the DUNS number, the number of employees, revenue, the NACIS code, and all of the relevant information has already been populated. So what I'm going to do over here is, you saw something in the UI, and over here, I'm going to bounce back to WorkBench and show you what query we ran for this. So since I'm creating accounts over here, I was querying Data Cloud Company. So this is the query which was fired in the background, which is where you were searching from Data Cloud Company, and your filters you specified were BNSF Logistics, and the state being specified as Texas. So you can see over here that we got a couple of results as we saw in the UI. They were obfuscated, and you can see that this is the account we just added. That is the one in the headquarters in Flower Mound. So the next demo we have for you is on leads. So let's say you're out on the road, or sales reps out on the road, and they need to make contact with people, or you're heading to a meeting. So what you want to know is, once you bring up your leads, you want to have all information that you can have about them. So let's say I'm heading for a meeting, and I have to meet Jessica. But suddenly, when going through the record, I realize that, I do not know her phone, I do not know her title. So what you would want to do is, you want to clean records at that point of time and keep the records updated. So what we've done in this case is, in S1, we've created a custom publisher action called clean. And once you click on clean, what this would do is, this would match your information to the information we have on Data.com. So for example, over here, we are able to provide you what was the title for her, as the phone, as well as the address. So what you could do is, you could decide to accept this information and click on submit. As you can see over here, I have all this information populated in my mobile phone itself. So this provides a good use case while you're on the road to keep your information updated. To show you what happened over here, what was the query we were running. So I'm going to go to my match. This was a Data Cloud data contact match. This is the URL. Again, the URL sort of follows a pattern, followed by the match verb, followed by, over here, I'm using the Data Cloud match engine, and then the attribute over here is Data Cloud contact. So this is my request over here. As you can see, I'm matching a Data Cloud contact, and the information that I'm providing is Jessica's first and last name and an email. And as you can see over here, I got a list of information back for that request. So you can make custom workflows, custom actions on how would you want to match those records at various points of time. The final demo we have over here is creating account hierarchies using parent duns. So let me just move here. So let's say you find out that your company is doing business with a global company, and you're looking to identify potential opportunities you could do with that business in your area. So account hierarchies are really useful over there. So we're going to look at one useful hierarchy. I'm just going to specify my state as Texas. So BNSF is the company that I'm interested in. As you can see over here, we created a complete hierarchy of what that company is, what is the parent of the company, and follow on, you can look at the parent chain right up, and we follow that all of this rolls up to the parent company of Berkshire Hathaway. So you can really create these customized applications using the parent or HQ DUNS number field. So let's look what happened under the hood for this. For this, we are going to use a SOQL query, and we are going to query another object that we have called the Data Cloud DNB company. To give you an example, so this sort of SOQL query is what I was running for BNSF Logistics. I was giving the DUNS number for the company, and the two important parameters that I'm querying over here are DUNS number and the parent or HQ DUNS number. So to show you the response over here, I get the DUNS number for this company as well as the parent or HQ DUNS number. So what you could do is you could do a step 2 after this, and what step 2 would look like is select all the companies for which the parent or HQ DUNS number is this. And this would give you the list of all the companies which are the possible child. So what you could do is now, similarly over here, you could follow steps 1 and 2 and keep moving up or down in the hierarchy and create a tree. So this is what we had for the demo. Moving back to the slides. Some of the gotchas and limitations when you're using these APIs. Please remember, when you're using data cloud matching, the maximum number of requests you can have in one batch is 30. That includes both for company and contact matching. For DUNS right matching, we only allow 10. This is because of a slower response. Match calls are all REST calls in Apex. They are not SOQL calls. And the APIs are available on Developer Edition. The data we have on Developer Editions is anonymized, and it's a limited data set. So your matching rates might vary. That is only for you to play around in the Developer Edition. There's no support for DUNS right match API on Developer Editions, as well as the social profile matching. Other than that, we talked about the ID fields in our data cloud objects are dummy. Please do not consider them as relevant IDs. The right ID fields are contact ID for data cloud contact and company ID for data cloud company. Some of the limits before we close. So for search, what we allow is maximum calls are 1,000 per user, and depending on the number of prospecting licenses. So let's say if you had 10 prospecting licenses, you would have like 10,000 calls a day. For purchase, there are no limits around the purchase over here. For match, again, we have 1,000 calls into the number of licenses. One thing I would like to point out here is when we say calls doesn't mean the number of records. So for example, over here, if I was using data cloud matching, one call you could include up to 30 records in a batch. So that would compute up to 30K records a day. So do not confuse records with call. One call could contain 30 records for data cloud matching. It would contain 10 records for DUNS right matching. Also remember this, all our data cloud API limits are irrespective of the force.com API limits. We do not use the same API limits. And all of these limits are applied org-wide. With this, I would like to end the session and open the floor for any questions. Yes.
All three APIs are available in winter 2015?
Yes. All this is available in winter.
What's new in 2015 purchase?
So purchase has been simplified, which was a two-step process. Yes, it was there before, but it was a two-step process. Now it's one, using the Connect API. We have the Done Right Match API, which is new. And we also have the Social Profile Match API.
And a customer using the EXE edition would have access
Yes.
to all of this?
Yes, but the limits would apply, but yes, he would have all the APIs available. Yeah. Yes, as I said, they are different from your force.com API limits. So the limits were like 1,000 calls per user, and it also depends on how many number of licenses you have. Like when I say licenses, I mean prospecting license, how many prospector users.
Hi, I just want to confirm two points.
Yes.
First is using the Datacom API is already included in data.com licenses, right? So there is no any additional cost for it.
Yes, depending whether you have the prospector or the clean licenses.
Okay.
So with prospector, you would get search. With clean, you would get match. If you have both, you would get both.
Okay, thank you. And the second thing, will you please share your PPT on the chat?
Pardon me?
Will you please share your PPT on chat?
Yes, so the PPT will be shared as well as, I think these sessions are recorded, so they would be available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think they get uploaded to YouTube in some time.
It's probably going to be a lag of a couple of days.
Yeah, a couple of days, yeah.
If you just check on Dreamforce website, there's a channel on YouTube. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So when I say DNB API, this is all the information you're getting from DNB, whatever information, yes. Yes, yes.
You were pasting your select statements in from a secondary sheet at the end of the uploads?
In the video would have it. Yes. And what we are planning to do is all these demos that we are showing, we're going to make these demos available as a part of Data.com app showcase. So they should soon be there.
Besides, we can probably connect. We can send
Yeah.
you something over email.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be a problem. More questions? Okay, we're on time. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank
you
you.
for coming.